Stock the fuck up.
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to episode 2 of Stock the Fuck Up. Like I said, I'm so excited that we finally have this idea launched and out here for you guys to listen to share with everybody. So, before we get started, again, here's a little disclaimer. We are not lawyers, financial advisors, and we are not suggesting that you do anything in particular with your money. We are simply having fun educating you with some fundamentals of investing, how to, shake that fear of investing, especially as a millennial generation. Or, you could be a Gen Xer or a Gen Z and also find some truth and wealth in this podcast. So welcome. So this episode I want to dedicate to I'm calling it them investing words. Why am I calling it that? It's because in the previous episode, in our premiere episode, we talked about the fact that we feel like we're not educated enough to invest. And that's one of our biggest hindrances, right? if if you had never taken algebra and I just tell you, hey, if there's this business that if you figure out 5 algebra problems, you can make $10,000, you're going to be like, well, fuck. I didn't never took algebra. I guess I'll have to teach it to myself. So that's kind of what we're doing here. We're trying to give you snippets of information, and believe me, there's so many other podcasts, YouTube channels, Twitch channels that can help you guys out. So, vocabulary. It's something that we're introduced to as early as first grade, as early as we know how to read, right? Your vocabulary bank when you're 6 years old is what? And, but, it, cat, dog. And hopefully, the goal with that is to have you read a book with those words. And, by the time you hit 4th grade, you have some other words. Transition, preferable, expository. So your vocabulary when wanting to invest is just as important. Why? I want to say that investing is a culture, and there are subcultures within the culture, right? So you still have the good old school investors. Maybe they're that Gen X investor. Heck, maybe they're baby boomers, and it's a generation that we simply can't relate to. Not only because of pop culture, but because of some of the methods that they go about in handling their money. In episode 1, we discussed how much what I call monetary trauma millennials have gone through, market crashes, and just the hesitations that we have. So clearly, we can't relate to older generations who didn't have to go through those changes. And now we have the lovely pandemic that we're going through. Your vocabulary when investing is important because it's the jargon that comes with the business, the jargon that is going to help you ask somebody else a question intelligibly, right? I want to read a little bit of a quote from CNBC, referring again to the fear of investing, and then also we'll go over some vocab, some easy vocab that you should know, and that'll be really the basis of the episode. All right, it's a CNBC. For a novice, it can be intimidating to invest money. There's the anxiety that comes with taking risks and knowing you may not get all of your money back. But arguably, what's even more intimidating to the investing person is the investing jargon. There are a lot of buzzwords financial advisors and veteran investors use, like expense ratio and asset allocation, that are important for the average investors to understand. Yet the language can be a barrier. So, this is real. This is a real barrier. And you can apply it to anything. I'm not putting investors in a bubble and criticizing them and calling them elitist, right? You could be at a football game and the team that you're supposed to be rooting for scores, and because you're completely ignorant, you say, goal, right? And your friends are going to look at you like, what are you doing here? If you're going to invest time and money in a specific field, in a specific industry arena of interest, educate yourself with some of that knowledge, some of that vocabulary, so that you're not the person in the stockroom chat yelling goal. I have words that I think are going to be really helpful. You don't have to write them down. You will not be quizzed, but I assure you, you'll be relieved to hear it in this podcast. And then when you see it online, when you start investing, you're going to be like, oh, I've heard of that word. All right, number 1, we have broker. A broker or a brokerage is any company that acts as an intermediary between the buyer and the seller of any asset in exchange for a commission. So, just to kind of put it in layman's terms or to visualize it for you, your app, your Robinhood, your Coinbase for crypto, that's your broker. It's that third party, that intermediary. Okay. It used to be somebody that you have to meet, right? Stuffy office, stuffy man in a suit, tie, and you're like, hey, I have money. What do I do with it? But now it's in the palm of our hands, and thank God, right? Because millennials have this high anxiety of control. Second, bull market. A bull market is a market in which the vast majority of the assets are heading up in value. These upward trending markets differ from the market bubbles because the movement takes place in a more rational way. So, for anyone who just took basic math, we're going to kind of break this down together. So, it's a market with an upward trend. That's it. So, if you're like, oh, if you hear bull market, you just know that that particular stock, that particular ticker that you may invest in the future is going up. And what's really cool about some of these apps is that it breaks it down and it shows you an actual graph. So really, even if you took, I would say, something as basic as middle school math, where we learn how to really just set up a proper graph, it'll make sense to you. And when you see that graph of that particular company, that particular stock go up, it's a bull market. All right, bid. The bid is the highest price an investor is willing to pay to buy a stock. The bid is always lower than the ask, the lowest price at which investors are willing to pay. So this is a little simpler to visualize, right? You are at, let's say, like an antiques sale or something, and everyone's bidding on this beautiful antique lamp, right? So it's the same concept. You are bidding in the stock market. So you can either buy a stock at market value, or you can put a smaller bid. So if a stock's like at $3, I can put like $2.99 or $2.95. So that's it, guys. Even if you just took away one word from this episode, it's going to increase your knowledge and it's going to decrease the barrier in that quote that I read earlier. And that'll lead us to our third episode, which we are going to talk about the app revolution. Maybe we can just download it together and identify these words. That sounds like fun. See you next time.